Hi Souls, welcome to my channel where hobby's gonna die. So I have a bunch of books that we thrifted. You probably saw the stories already of us going to a comic store and a used bookstore, one of our favorites, Good Books in the Woods. So myself, my husband, and his brother all are avid readers. All of the books behind me, which you don't see the entire, we have a whole wall of shelves. They're all collective of all three of our interests. So I want to show you everyone's haul, not just mine, that we got from the used bookstore and the comic shop. I need to do this in two parts because there is literally 30 plus books sitting beside me and I feel like that's going to be too long. So this time I'm going to go through the nonfiction, the poetry, and the classics. And then the second one next week will be all the rest of the fiction. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go through my husband's and then his brother's and then move on from there. So this is The Path Between the Seas by David McCullough. McCullough? I don't know how to pronounce his last name, I'm sorry. But this is the creation of the Panama Canal 1870-1914. David is one of my husband's favorite historians. He gets a lot of books by this author to read, all the history books. So, of course, when he saw this, he immediately had to pick it up to add to his David collection. I'm not going to say his last name, I butcher it. If you are interested in a lot of history, I'm sure my husband would recommend looking at David. According to this, he's done 1776, John Adams, Truman, Brave Companions, Mornings on Horseback. That's the one that my husband, he's wanting me to read that one, Mornings on Horseback. He's really big into Theodore Roosevelt. He literally has a special shelf full of Theodore Roosevelt books and everything. Actually, Mark Twain is up there as well because he found a bunch of old Mark Twain books. Maybe I should do that sometime. Take you through and explore all of our shelves, but especially that one because it's got a lot of special books and stuff on it. But anyways, so pretty self-explanatory what this is. This is only 617 pages because the print is pretty big. I don't consider this big. I consider this, I mean, it's still big, but I still consider this pretty average, especially for a history book. It's not like a huge 1,000+ page book like it. And then my husband also picked up Nothing Like It in the World by Stephen E. Ambrose. And this is the men who built the Transcontinental Railroad, 1863-1869. My husband and his brother both are really big into history when it comes to railroads. And my brother-in-law especially is really big into maritime stuff, which you'll see once I get through his. They actually both picked up a book about the Transcontinental Railroad. And this is the one that my husband got. I think he really likes the cover of this one. It's a really nice cover. He has not read anything else by Ambrose. This is his first one, so it'll be interesting to see if he likes the way that this author writes. This is cool. It's got the transcontinental map on the front and back, I do believe. Yep. It also has old photos and stuff in the center. There's a bunch of pages, photo pages in the center of this. So yeah, that'll be interesting to read about. A lot of these books I myself am fascinated in because I don't know a whole lot. I briefly know history, but when it came to history in school, I literally just slept in general in every class. I got bored. But now that I'm older, I do want to learn more about history and stuff. So I'm glad that my husband and my brother-in-law are both history buffs. That means I have a whole, literally 2 shelves full of history books that I can pick up if I want to read one. And then the last thing that my husband got is Knight's Cross by David Fraser. And this is a life of Field Marshal Erwin Rommel? Erwin? I can't pronounce his name. Rommel is the one who went against Hitler in the end when he saw that the Allied forces were winning, I do believe, if I remember my history correctly. Rommel is not, to David Fraser, a flawless hero. His failings as well as his genius are recorded here. But he had that instinct for battle and leadership which sets him apart from his contemporaries and places him among the great commanders. Really fascinating to read about certain people in varying sides of war and stuff. So I might also read this. If, again, David Fraser is not an author that my husband has ever read anything by, so this is going to be another experiment on whether or not he likes the way that this author writes. But if he does, and he recommends it, then maybe I will pick it up at some point and learn more about people and history, because I need to. I feel lost when they talk about history and stuff. So that was all 3 of the nonfictions that my husband picked up, and then I have 4 from my brother-in-law, starting with 2 Years Before the Mast by R.H. Donna Jr. So we already have 2 Years Before the Mast on our shelves, but it's like a newer paperback, and he saw this, the Harvard Classics, at the thrift store, and this is a 1909, I do believe. Yeah, copyright 1909, and it's like really it's a really good condition edition. So that's the reason why he picked it up, even though we have the paperback version just to have, so we had on our shelves. I like older books, and the fact that this is so nicely preserved and stuff, it would be nice to put on our shelves. 2 Years Before the Mast, for anyone who doesn't know, I actually have notes now. It is a memoir first published in 1840, written after a 2-year voyage from Boston to California on a merchant ship. There's also a film adaptation under the same name. So, like I said, my brother-in-law is very big into maritime stuff, so 2 Years Before the Mast. And then we have the USS Essex and the Birth of the American Navy. So another about a ship book for my brother-in-law. The USS Essex, a 32-gun frigate, I think it's frigate, built in 1799 by the merchants of Salem, was known around the world for her speed and graceful lines, achieving a brilliant series of dramatic firsts for the young American Navy. So this is all about USS Essex, which again, I don't know a whole lot about myself, so it'll be interesting to see if this is a good book for me to read. If the history book is too dry for me, I'm not going to be able to read it. I think my brother-in-law doesn't mind dry history books, so it's probably not going to be one I'm going to be able to read, but we'll see. We'll see what he thinks. And then, following the maritime history, we have the Maritime History of Massachusetts, 1783 through 1860, by Samuel Eliot Morison. The magic era when America first became a world power and Salem boys were more at home in Canton than in New York. And this is a Century Edition series with the, like, what do you call this? I don't know what material this is. I don't know if it's like a cloth material. It kind of feels like a cloth material. But yeah, it's a really cool edition. And he's also into railroads. So he also picked up a book about the Transcontinental Railroad, Empire Express, building the first Transcontinental Railroad by David Howard Bain. This is a big book. It's heavy. Told from the points of views of its participants, Empire Express's uniquely American cast includes self-made entrepreneurs such as the Union Pacific's Thomas Durant or the Central Pacific's Collis Huntington, who built railroad empires across the West while spinning webs of influence all over Washington, D.C. Engineers such as Theodore Judah, who discovered a route across the 7,000-foot-high California Sierra in the footsteps of the tragic Donner Party, and Grenfell Dodge, who forged a path across the Rockies while being pursued by an Indian war party. Tribal leaders such as Spotted Tail and Red Cloud, who alternated between conciliation and defiance of the soldiers and locomotives, heralded the onrush of farmers, ranchers, prospectors, and townsfolk. Among more than 25,000 nameless laborers whose backbreaking work made the railroad possible, especially the Irish, most fresh off the Civil War battlefields, and the Chinese. Era-defining figures such as President Lincoln, Generals Grant, Sherman, and Sheridan, and Mark Twain and Walt Whitman. So there's a lot of as told through the eyes of in this, it looks like. And it's a big book. 711 pages. That was all of the nonfiction. I didn't pick up any nonfiction. I was too focused in the classics and the fiction sections to dig into nonfiction. I have to be really in the mood for me to read nonfiction, and I've already got several nonfiction books on my TBR shelf. I don't need to add more. Moving on to poetry, we only have one poetry book, and it is the Collected Poems of Robert Service. This is a favorite of my husband's, so this is something my husband found. He randomly just stumbled across this, and apparently this is hard to find, like a full collection of Robert Service's poems. I know he has another smaller book of the Yukon something, I think it's on here. Yeah, The Spell of the Yukon and Other Verses. He has the smaller version of those, but this one literally has that one, Collected Poems of Robert Service, more collected verse of Robert Service, and later collected verse of Robert Service. So it has all of them in here. I think he was looking for it, and it was like either hard to find or really expensive if he does find it. So the fact that he stumbled across this, he wasn't even looking for it. Good Books in the Woods is literally just mazes and mazes upon bookshelves. Literally mazes. I got lost trying to find my husband in the nonfiction section. There is a ton of nonfiction books there. So while he was going through, he looked over and he saw this, a little hilarious story. So he was walking back with this, with his prize, and I think he read somewhere that this was like a decommissioned or old library book or something. I think he read somewhere. I don't even see it anymore, whatever he saw. But he's like, I wonder what library this is from. And then he opened the back, and it is from where he used to live, from the college where he used to work at. So the fact that it somehow ended up in a used bookstore in Houston to end up in his hands, full circle from the old college he used to work at, is crazy. So now we have this for him. I've actually not read any of Robert Service's poems, so I'm interested in reading it myself because my husband is really big into Robert Service, and I like learning about things that he's interested in. So that's all the poetry books that we found. I didn't really dig into the poetry books, or else I'd probably have more to show there. But what I did dig into, and the only one who dug into, is the classics. My foot is falling asleep. They have like a rotating bookshelf in the used bookstore that literally has all their classics, and I just sat there and picked it apart, and I found a bunch of goodies, including Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier? I don't know how to say the name. I'm constantly being told I should read this. It's got a gothic setting and everything. I think it's like a tragic. It's not like, let me see. Let me read the back. I'm sure people know what this is about, but I went in blind. I said, everyone wants me to read it, so sure, why not? So let me read the back. Last night I dreamt I went to the Mandalay again. So the second Mrs. Maxim de Winter remembered the chilling events that led her down the turning drive past the beaches, white and naked, to the isolate gray stone manse on the windswept Cornish coast. The husband she barely knew, the young bride arrived at this immense estate only to be inexorably drawn into the life of the first Mrs. De Winter, the beautiful Rebecca, dead but never forgotten, her suite of rooms never touched, her clothes ready to be worn, her servant, the sinister Mrs. Danvers, still loyal, and as an eerie presentiment of evil tightened around her heart, the second Mrs. De Winter began her search for the real fate of Rebecca, for the secrets of Mandalay. Sounds interesting, actually. So, I'm excited to read it. Also, I read that really, really awkwardly because there is a lot of big words that I know the meaning of, but I can't say. I have a mild speech problem, so I kind of stumble over words. They are correct in my head, but I can't get them out. So, sorry if that was very awkwardly read, but it sounds really interesting and also very tragic. So we'll see if I like it. And then the next one that I picked up is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I've reviewed the TV series, and I had mentioned that I want to pick up the book and read it. I can't remember who commented this, I'm sorry, but someone commented on my review of the TV show that the book is actually way different. So I'm curious to see how different. And then I got The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Other Stories by Washington Irving. I like old paintings, classic paintings like that. I've actually never read Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and I don't know anything else by Washington Irving, so I thought this would be an interesting collection to pick up and read, both for Legend of Sleepy Hollow, but also there's apparently The Spectre Bridegroom, The Devil and Tom Walker, The Wife, Westminster Abbey, Mountjoy, and Adventure of the Mysterious Stranger, and 5 other classics. There's 5 other that weren't listed on here. Filled with satire, pathos, and picturesque observations, these remarkable stories are important foundations of the American literary tradition. I don't know if they're all going to be spooky like Legend of Sleepy Hollow, but it'll be interesting to read anyway. So I've read in indie author's detective story that he was really inspired by Doyle and Poe, because Poe is actually the creator of detective works, and what Doyle got inspired to write his detective, Sherlock Holmes. So that book actually inspired me where I want to actually read Sherlock Holmes. I've never read Sherlock Holmes. I've read the Dupin Poes. I saw one book on the rotating shelf that was at least one of the Sherlock Holmes, but I wanted like a full collection because I know there's like a lot of books. And I turned around, and on the old fireplace behind the classics, this was sitting there. The Illustrated Sherlock Holmes Treasury. So it has all of the Sherlock Holmes in this, and the illustrations that were in the books. So now I have this on the shelf, and this excited all of us because all of us would like to read Sherlock Holmes. Obviously the dust cover is pretty messed up and the pages are really old and stuff. I didn't even see what edition this is. It does not say the year on it. I don't know what edition this is, but it's definitely older. But yeah, now I have it, which is great. So that was the first half of the book haul. A whole ton of books to add to our shelves. We literally don't have any room on our TBR shelves. I do. I have room so I can put my books on my TBR shelves, but they don't. So I just randomly stacked theirs somewhere for them to read eventually. But tune in next Wednesday when I go through the second half, all the fiction books that we picked up, which there's a ton of those to go through. Until then, like, comment, subscribe. Bye, souls.